duffel bag and everything else. People are yelling at me, or I can hear people yelling. Lots of luck, soldier. God bless you. God be with you, soldier. I could hear this as I'm running to my plane. I get on a plane, and they actually had a reserve. There was a first-class seat, and they shoved me into the first-class seat. I get to New York. I come off the plane in New York, and I'm trying to get a cab. And finally, this cab, the cabs are lined up outside. I'm opening the door to the cab, and this guy comes up behind me, pushes me aside, and says, "Sorry, soldier, this is for me." It shows you the different perspectives, right? And again, this is New York. Okay, it's not saying there's all New Yorkers were that way, but it's just an example to me about, this war is not, how you say, unilaterally or uniformly accepted here at home.
Well, Jim, what about you?
Well, the Paris Peace Accords were signed in January of '73, and then I got out of the Army on June 25th of '73 after a stint at the chaplain school at Fort Hamilton to finish up. And January 26th, the day after I got out of the Army, I started back at Newsday as a fledgling reporter, and I just put my uniform in the closet and didn't think about it for 40 years. I never joined the VFW post, American Legion, didn't really talk about my service, and tried to resume my civilian life.
Joey?
The audience must realize that we went to Vietnam, most of us on individual orders, and we came back on individual orders. That means we went there by ourselves and we came home by ourselves. There was no, big unit coming home. There was no ceremony. There were no parades. You just came home. By the time I came home, we knew that back here, the majority of the people did not support the war anymore, and they weren't making a distinction between the war and a warrior. We were never called warriors, never, ever. So when I came home, I had still some time to do in the Marine Corps. I did it down at Virginia Beach. But once I got out, even there, I would only talk about the war with other Marines. I never said a word to my wife. And when I got out, I just tried to put it behind me. I didn't say anything about the war for over 30 years. Over 30 years. Nobody knew I was a Vietnam vet. Nobody knew. But somehow, the war catches up to you. It does catch up, and it just comes up. And writing to me has been, I think, really good. It's some form of therapy, getting the word out.
Good. Vietnam has become a real big tourist attraction and normalization of the relationship between Vietnam and the United States. I have many friends who've gone to Vietnam. They visit the Hanoi Hilton. They visit so many spots. Have any of you ever gone back or wish to go back to Vietnam? Jim?
I have too many ghosts. I have nothing to see in Vietnam. What am I going to see? A McDonald's where a fire base used to be. As far as I'm concerned, they were the enemy, and the enemy took over a country that we were trying to preserve as non-communist. And to me, that was a tragedy. On April 30th of 1975, I had a traumatic incident in my mother's home when I was watching the helicopters be pushed into the South China Sea and people fleeing the NVA troops and panic and Americans burning documents and guarding the embassy. And I collapsed in my mother's bathroom, and I was bleeding out of my nose and my mouth, and I was pounding on the wall saying 58,000 dead for what? Those son of a bitches couldn't even defend themselves.
Joe, have you had any desire at all to go back to Vietnam?
Not really, because I have friends, buddies, Marines that served in Vietnam have gone back, and they've been back to the fire bases, and there's nothing there. And they said that when they went into Da Nang, you couldn't recognize it. There's, I guess, skyscrapers and all. I wouldn't recognize anything. If I went back, where I would want to go is into the highlands, into the forests, the triple canopy. That's where I would want to go.
Okay. Ron, we only have a few seconds.
I
Can you
imagine.
tell us, what about you, a feeling of returning or not?
Personally, no. Like the two gentlemen here, I pretty much agree with their perception of Vietnam. I did have a conversation with the author Nelson DeMille, who I met him a couple of times, and we had some short conversations together. And he asked me
Ron,
about.
I'm sorry, but the program's just
Out of
about
time.
over. Really, this was too short. We have to do a second part. I will talk to Linda and see if we can, if you gentlemen are agreeable.
Sure.
Because this was a fascinating, one of my best experiences I've had in a long, long time. So, but we do have to end the program. And thank you so much for everything, serving and coming here. Thank you.